Attention, you're listening to The Todd Huff Show, America's home for conservative, not bitter talk and education. Be advised, the content of this program has been documented to prevent and even cure liberalism, and listening may cause you to lean to the right. And now, coming to you from the Full Suite Wealth Studios, here's your conservative but not bitter host, Todd Huff.
Yesterday, my friends, we talked about the biggest stories, the most consequential stories of 2025, stories that would continue to leave their mark in 2026 and some far beyond that. Today, what I want to do is talk about what I anticipate in 2026. Some of these things that we anticipate will reflect some of the stories we talked about yesterday as being the most consequential stories. Those things go hand in hand, but some of these might be new developments that are coming down the political road here as we turn the calendar to 2026. So that's where we're headed today. Thank you for joining us. If you want to be part of the conversation, Todd at toddhuffshow.com. Thoughts, questions, feedback, all those sorts of things will be accepted at that email. Just make sure you make it count, my friends. Most of you do. Occasionally someone doesn't. You just got to bring it. You got to bring your best and make it count. So that's where we're headed today, my friends. Also, you know what? I'd like to invite you to sign up for our free email newsletter called The Inner Circle. You can do that also at toddhuffshow.com. You can sign up. It goes out daily. I say daily. It's this week not going to be Thursday and Friday. That is another housekeeping tip. I'll go ahead and tell you here off the top. We are in tomorrow. Of course, we're here today as well. We're in tomorrow. We are not here on Thursday or Friday because of the new year. So there you have it, my friends. That's where we're headed, and it's good to be here on this New Year's Eve. Let's talk about something important, my friends, your money. You worked hard for your money, but is it working hard for you and what you believe in? At 48 Financial, they specialize in biblically responsible investing. That means they screen out companies that do not align with your faith and your values, and they'll help create a plan that fits your goals and purpose. The best part is that they'll show you how your current investments, what you currently have today, how those stack up against your values. Do they reflect your values, or are you funding things through your investments, companies that are pushing in the exact opposite direction you are, companies that are pushing for an agenda that is a radical, godless left's agenda? They have a tool, 48 Financial does, that will help you get a clear picture of that. And there's probably no better time to do this. It's always a good time to review these sorts of things, but as you turn the calendar, this might be a natural time to do this. 48financial.com/Todd. That's where you can go to take the quick and easy assessment to see how your current investments stack up against your values. Again, that's 48financial.com/Todd. That'll take you to the assessment. 48 Financial, my friends, helping you align your money with your mission. Okay, let's get to it today. Again, talking, these aren't, well, let me set the stage here. This isn't so much predictions as much as it's just expectations of where I think we are headed based on things like history, based on human nature, based on the power dynamic, based upon this being an election year, a midterm election year. Now, you know, almost certainly, listen, we've got people, again, all over the gamut that tune in here. We've got people who are seasoned professionals. You've got the ability, as Rush Limbaugh used to say, to read the seams on the fastball. You can see what's coming and adjust and make contact with that ball as it's coming across home plate. You've got the ability to do that. Some of you have followed it for a while. Maybe you're still learning. Everybody's learning, by the way. Everybody's still learning. But some are still in kind of the middle phase where you've come to grips with a lot of the fundamentals, but you're still learning some of the nuance that makes it possible to really have a firm understanding and to see what's coming and to be prepared to deal with it. And then some are new folks, new to politics for whatever reason. Some people haven't lived enough years to have the amount of experience necessary. Some folks didn't care about politics. Whatever the reason, it makes no difference to me which category you are in. In some respect, we're all in the same boat. We're all learning. We're all trying to make the most of this. We're all trying to push in the same direction here, in the direction of the Constitution, constitutional conservatism, and so forth, in the direction of liberty. And so this is an election year, and we know, that historically that means losses for the party in power. That's just the way that it works. It's easier to, if you're the party out of power, to stir up energy in your base to go out and to push back against the losses you had in the previous election. So that is the starting point. The Democrats have an advantage as far as that goes. Now, we absolutely have a say in this, but this is what history teaches us. So we should know what we're up against. We're already in a very, very close House of Representatives, which is what there's only a couple of Republican seats. If they were to flip, it would make it a Democrat majority House of Representatives, which would mean no Speaker Johnson. It would mean a Speaker Hakeem Jeffries for the Democrats. We're very close to that. That's why these fights about redistricting mattered so much as we head into the midterms here. But regardless, here are things that I anticipate in that, kind of with that framework heading into the 2026 midterm election year. First of all, I'm going to say buckle up, because it's going to be tumultuous. There's going to be a lot going on. So here's my expectations. These aren't predictions. These aren't, this is just what I think as of right now, as we're about to turn the calendar from 2025 into 2026. So first, I think it's clear that the economy continues to improve in 2026. It's, of course, not going to be perfect. It never will be. There's still pain in the overall economy, not just the economy, but just the nation's finances. When you factor things in, like the national debt and those sorts of things that have real impact, that we've continued to kick that can down the road for years and years and years now. But I think things are noticeably going to be better than where we have been, even in 2025. When you think about what we endured during the 4 years of the Biden administration, we endured a lot, massive inflation. I think a lot of folks don't fully understand that inflation isn't something that can be really undone. It can be slowed down, but it can't really be reversed. So when we see, and first of all, I'm talking about true, genuine inflation. I'm not talking about every reason that causes prices to go up in the marketplace, because not all price increases are inflation. We've gotten lazy, and that's what we say in 2025. We call any price increase inflation, but inflation is a phenomenon. I've gone through this countless times. Forgive me if you've heard this 50 times on here, but inflation, it's important. Inflation is a phenomenon that exists when the federal government, and only the federal government can do this. When you hear people debating who's responsible for inflation, it is an exercise in pure sophistry, because inflation is a specific phenomenon. All inflation leads to price increases, but not all price increases are the result of inflation. So So when you have inflation, what you have is the federal government creating more money supply than actual real value created in the marketplace. That's the simplest way to put it. And so the economy, the value that we create economically in our country every year or month, however you want to measure it, it has a value. It has a real value that should correspond to, in a perfect world, the same amount of dollars. But that's not what happens. The government will produce more dollars than real value. And what happens because markets seek an equilibrium, what happens is the market understands this, and so things that you have more money to pay for because there's an excess amount of dollars, everything will rise so that the money flows to them because you can get you can get more for them because there's more dollars out there. And when that happens, what you've done is you've watered down the value of all dollars because you've inflated the value of the things in the marketplace just because there's more money. Not because they're actually worth more to the person buying it, but because you pumped too much money into the market, into the economy, I should say. And so what happens is you create this scenario where you're weakening the buying power, the purchasing power of the dollars. And I was telling my son this last night. My son is in this situation where he's having to look at and understand these things in ways he's never understood them before because he's got a little business. He's done really well for himself. I'm very proud of the guy. But some of these things mean more to him. And I said, look, it's increasing taxes is bad, but that's saying we're going to put more of a financial burden on you today to pay more. Inflation, I would say, is even worse because the money you have stashed away, they say that because of inflation, that becomes worth less because the value of those dollars isn't what it was when you put it there. And it's just this insidious sort of thing. And so, but once Trump came into office, he can slow inflation, which he did, his policies, of course, and they've adjusted some things. There's a lot of technical stuff that goes into this. But again, at the basic understanding level that we're talking about this, that's exactly what it is. And so you can't reverse it. So it's like you're blowing up a balloon and you blow it up with inflation. It's baked in. It's already air in the balloon. Now you can say, well, let's let air out. But in reality, what happens is all you do moving forward is you can slow the rate of the air that you blow into the balloon. It's already in there, and you can't really take it out of the equation because it's already been done. You can just slow it. And so then you have to have growth, and we've started to see growth. I shared yesterday we had a 4.3 GDP growth in November. We'll see what that looks like in December here. But we're definitely on the right track. We've slowed inflation. Now GDP is increasing. And I expect more of that in 2026. In fact, I would go as far to say that 2026 could show a major economic boom, my friends. Now, will we begin to see and feel this real improvement, like this dramatic improvement that I think could be coming prior to the election, to where people can associate what's happening with policy? I don't know. I hope so. The election's not until later in the year, but you know how this game is played. Democrats, the media, they'll tell you that it's anything besides Trump's policies and that sort of thing. But regardless of the impact that this has on the election in 2026, the economy is going to continue to show improvement. Everything's going to stay tight and close, I think. When you talk about votes or margins or majorities, I don't anticipate any blowouts. Of course, there could be some quote-unquote easy victories in certain districts or states, but when you look at things on a national level in the U.S. Congress, I don't know if there's going to be many easy wins. That's just the way that this is shaped up right now, and the way that it could be after the 2026 midterms as well. The midterms will be, I expect this to be the case. The midterms will absolutely be a real fight. The Republicans, I expect, will hold on to the Senate. The outcome of the House of Representatives is unpredictable, I would say. It could flip Democrat. It could remain Republican. It's possible for Republicans to gain a couple seats. It's possible for them to lose several seats. We shall see where that goes. There will be, of course, prepare yourselves for this. There's going to be more negative news targeting Trump and Republicans in 2026. This, of course, goes without saying. As I've said on this program for years, this is the strategy. This is the strategy the left always employs, not just against Trump. You know, for those of you who are newer listeners, let me make this clear. This is not something that is new that has happened to Donald Trump. It is new in relation to how negative and how aggressive the negative news coverage is about Trump. But this has always been the playbook. The playbook by the media, by the Democrat Party against Republicans is really pretty simple. What they do is they attack them, they malign them, and most people just by nature think, you know what, this fight isn't worth having. I don't want the negative coverage. Some of these folks, as weird as it might sound, I mean, Washington, D.C., you hear a lot of people talk about the uniparty, and there's certainly truth that there is an element of the uniparty in Washington, D.C. There's no doubt about it. But if you go in there as someone who's not part of the uniparty, you had better have some really thick skin, and you really had better not care about being accepted into that inner circle, the DC elites circle. But see, once you're in there, just human nature kicks in for a lot of folks. It's easier. It's easier to get along. It's easier when you're getting invited to the parties. It's easier when you're part of the group versus ostracized and attacked. People don't like that. And so the media knows this, and they attack people. And usually what happens is the Republican, the conservative, will just say, you know what, this isn't worth it. And they'll back off, and they'll say it's better to not have my reputation destroyed or whatever than it is to win on this particular issue. Trump's not wired that way, though. Trump says, you know what? If you hit me, I'm going to hit back a little bit harder. And this tit for tat sort of scenario has been how they've functioned for all of these, years, with all these different candidates and politicians, except it's very rare for someone to hit back. And not only hit back once, but to hit back again. And so when both sides are programmed or are prepared to simply ratchet it up one step higher each and every time, there's no end in sight. And the media doesn't have another strategy. And so this was unavoidable. And so in fact, you can go back to the early days of this show. It's still shocking to me to see how much they hate him. But we were talking about this in the early days. It wasn't hard to see that Trump was a fighter, that he was not really bothered. In fact, in some cases, energized by what happened on when he's attacked and so forth. It almost gives him energy. He's got a remarkable ability to do this, but it's effective. It's effective for people, at least for some people out there, to see a bunch of negative news. And one of two things happens. They either just believe the negative news and think, wow, it can't be possible for this many bad things to be made up about one person, so he's got to be as bad as they tell me. Or there's another group, too, that there's this subtle undertone that says the cool people, the people who are in the in crowd or whatever, they're the ones who hate Trump. So in order to be part of I'm telling you, adulthood is like high school for a lot of people. And a lot of people say, listen, it's easier for me. It's easier for me to just be on this side of the fence. I don't really care. I just want to not step in front of the buzzsaw. I don't want to be canceled. I don't want the relentless assaults of people on social media to come after me. That's what a lot of people think. But that's not what principled people think. That's not what people like Trump think when he wants to get stuff done. So be prepared, of course, for more negative news to hit Trump and the Republicans in 2026. This is not going to stop, by the way. Locally here in my state, I'm in Indiana. Most of you are not in my state. A healthy chunk of you are here on our home base, Freedom 95 in Indianapolis. But in my state, that there was a redistricting fight. We talked about this for a while in this program because it had national implications. It had implications for the election of 2026. I think that the primary season, which will happen here in my state, we have May primaries. So in early May, you're going to see that there's a real Republican divide. And I think you'll find that in other places as well. I think incumbents who underestimate the opposition that they face from people like me, many of people like you, people in this audience, I think that they better not assume that they are safe in this primary season. They are misreading the room if they think that. This is the establishment, the country clubbers, the moderate Republicans against conservatives who actually grasp what's at stake nationally, my friends. This clash is going to be coming into the open in May. It's going to be happening before that during the primary season, but be prepared for that as well here in Indiana and elsewhere. I think you'll see that as well. Friends, I've got to prepare ourselves here for our first time out. Let me remind you, we've partnered with MyPillow. We've had a partnership with them for several years now. In fact, we interviewed Mike Lindell, who's now running for governor of the great state of Minnesota here this year against Tim Walz. But MyPillows has been through the ringer for believing a lot of the things that we're talking about here on this show, believing in freedom, believing in liberty, fighting for election integrity, those sorts of things. You can support an American patriot in Mike Lindell and get some tremendous products as well, like their pillows and slippers at mypillow.com. Get a lot of discounts as well by using promo code Todd when you make your purchase. MyPillow.com, promo code Todd saves you on virtually everything you're going to find on their store. MyPillow.com, promo code Todd. I have to take a quick time out, my friends. You're listening to Conservative Not Bitter Talk. I'm your host, Todd Huff. Back in just a minute. Welcome back, my friends. We are talking here about what to expect in 2026. When we left you last segment, we were talking about the fight that is coming, and it's continuing. But for many people who, again, this is not you, this is for other people out there who don't follow this as closely as we do, it might come as a bit of a surprise. But there are going to be real fights at the primary level in states like Indiana, and they're going to happen, and they're going to happen for time to come. In fact, I've got a group of you that have told me that you want to basically stay informed for my listeners in Indiana to continue to work together to try to defeat people who are Republicans in the primaries who are not fighting in such a way that we can win in these elections. These things matter tremendously. And if you want to do that, just send me an email, Todd at Todd Huff Show, and just put Indiana primaries or something in the subject line, and we'll get you added to that list so that we can, as we start working with other groups like Turning Point Action or whoever else here, give you ways to step into the fight here and to actually see Republicans grow a backbone and do what needs to be done to ensure that liberty survives all of this chaos, my friends. I think as we look ahead to 2026, we had better be prepared for more drama. And I'll tell you something else. You might have found, you might have seen some reports from I guess you'd just say a citizen journalist named Nick Shirley. You may have seen him on social media. It's remarkable what he's done. He's gone up to Minnesota. He's gone and dug into these groups that have allegedly been stealing money, fraudulently taking state money for schools. This particular group is a group of Somalian refugees that are getting money. He's gone to these places in person, showing these schools. I believe they were supposedly schools with no kids in them. Of course, the people came to the door. They wouldn't talk to him. They shut the door and all that kind of stuff. I think we're going to find more of this corruption exposed. And it's going to come at the hands of people like, citizen journalists like Nick Shirley, because the media is not interested in this. The media, again, as I've talked about on here before, as Rush used to talk about, it's the PR firm of the Democrat Party. That is who the media is. They're not interested in getting real information about what's really going on out there, especially if it's detrimental to Democrats. They're interested in pushing a political narrative. They're interested in certain outcomes. That is not journalism, my friends. That's corruption. Listen, there's nothing wrong with sharing your opinions, but to do so under the guise that you're presenting unbiased news is a wild, wild thing to try to get away with. It's one of the reasons why I refuse routinely. I refuse to accept the allegation, I guess, that I'm a journalist. I'm not a journalist. I am someone who has opinions. I come to this microphone every day to try to persuade people to hear and receive truth. That's what I want. I want people to believe in the gospel of Jesus Christ. I want people to believe in the principles that we've set forth in this country, the constitutional principles we've set forth, the concept of life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, the things that you read in the Declaration of Independence, the concepts that you'll capture by reading the Bill of Rights or other founding documents or whatever. That's what I want to see people accept. I think that's good for our nation. That's good for liberty. As Reagan said, liberty is always one generation away. Freedom is always one generation away from extinction. It is. You don't pass it along. I told my son this last night when we were talking about taxes and all this stuff as he's got his new business and so forth. Liberty, freedom doesn't get inherited or passed along automatically. We have to do the work necessary to explain it so that people appreciate it. The next generation accepts it, understands it, embraces it. And not only that, is prepared to then share it with the next generation. That's how this stuff works, my friends. And so we've got a real problem here in this nation, lots of them, and we're going to have more drama, more corruption exposed because however bad we think the government is, however much corruption, however much fraudulent activity that's been happening with these government programs, it's probably worse, and it's going to take people like Nick Shirley to expose the truth. And you just keep digging, it gets uglier and uglier and uglier. But expect more of that, more corruption to be exposed. Trump, of course, is trying to do stuff about these things. Some of these things he can't. These are, state problems, or people are inside the bureaucratic state with a lot of insulation, a lot of things that prevent him from being able to do what needs to be done, which is, in many cases, just mass firings and so forth. But just expect that in 2026. And expect the media to basically say you're crazy for believing it. Expect the media, the Democrat Party, to say that it's not as bad as they tell us it is. I saw Charlemagne talking with Jasmine Crockett, a clip on over the Christmas holiday, and he was asking her about this. He basically acknowledged, there's waste, fraud, and abuse. Can't you acknowledge it? Well, yeah, she says, but it's not as bad as they make it out to be. Okay, well, you can see what happens. You can see what happens when you continue to dig, when you shine a light on a situation, and you'll see more and more of this. More and more of this. There's a real risk, by the way, as we get here in the next month, actually a month from today, there's a real risk of another government shutdown. Funding expires for much of the government on January 30th. Not all of it, but certainly a big chunk of it. Given where we are with the breakdown of the House of Representatives, I don't know. I don't know if there will be another shutdown or not. To be honest, right now, I probably lean, I think in percentages, I lean on the side that says there's a better than average chance or a likely chance, more than 50% that there will be a government shutdown because of a couple things. Number one, the Democrats think that this hurts Republicans. Number one, in a political, an election year that matters. Number one. Number two, there are Republicans who have been told for a long time that if you just wait until the next vote, we can fix the spending problem. We can cut spending here or there, but there's never a will to do that. And so the likelihood that that happens is probably small. The small chance that there's going to be real legitimate cuts, and that's going to cause some Republicans who have been told wait until next time, they're going to say, well, I can't continue to wait forever. We have to at some point begin to make real cuts to spending. And I don't think Republicans, some of them are not going to be on board with the cuts, and some of them will find it unacceptable that we continue to kick the can down the road. And actually, if you remember what I said at the previous shutdown, that I thought that they should have agreed to the to the vote to reopen the government, but also say that this was the last time. So, of course, there's other things they should have done between that point of time and now, and I don't know how much of that has been done, but nonetheless, we find ourselves on the verge of another shutdown, and it could be another shutdown, and it could be a lengthy shutdown. So we'll see where that goes. There's going to be a major fight over what I would call in general tariff dividends. Trump has secured more tariffs for this country than we've seen in a long, long time. Trump has said he wants to send checks to the American people. There's a couple of variations of this, whether it's a direct check or whether it's potentially a tax cut where you will actually see the standard deduction increase $600 to $2,000 or whatever. That's a real legitimate thing. Whether this happens at all, how much that's going to be, what form they take, I don't know. But I expect Donald Trump to continue to push hard for this, and I think we're going to see this cross the finish line sometime here early. I say early, semi-early in 2026. We'll see. Of course, we've got Trump's State of the Union coming up here in a month or so, which I'm sure he'll hit on that as well. So, all right, got to cue us up here for another quick break, my friend. There is a lot of confusion out there about kratom. You've probably heard the headlines, and most of those headlines are based on synthetic junk that is not real kratom at all. Real kratom needs to be tested and handled with care. It doesn't need to be blended synthetically or have all those junky components. And that's exactly what you expect from Christopher's Organic Botanicals. Product that's real, that's natural, that's not a bunch of synthetic junk. This is a family-run company that partners directly with farmers in Indonesia. Every batch is tested for purity. There's no chemicals, fillers, or shortcuts. Friends, you can go research at Christopher'sOrganicBotanicals.com, or you can make a purchase of their Kratom Starter Pack. Use coupon code Todd Huff. You'll save 10% on your first order. Christopher'sOrganicBotanicals.com. Truth, tradition, transparency. Time out for me, my friends. Back in just a minute. Welcome back, my friends, on the eve of New Year's Eve 2025. We're going through what I think are things we need to anticipate and expect heading into 2026. Going through some of these things. Got more things on the list. I'll get through as many as I can. Moving forward here. Ever notice, friends, how some families seem to have a plan that lasts for generations? That is not by accident. Full Suite Wealth works with people who want their wealth to make a difference for years to come. Their team brings together high-level investment strategies like private equity, private credit, and option strategies Combined with expert legal guidance, it's about making sure your vision becomes a reality for the people you love today and tomorrow. If you're looking to do more than just manage your money, if you want to leave your mark, if you want to build something lasting, take a look at Full Suite Wealth. Visit fullsuitewealth.com. That's fullsuitewealth.com. Build your legacy, secure your future. I mentioned before the break, expect a major fight over tariff dividends. I think Trump's going to win this in some way, shape, manner, or form. There's a lot of reluctance among Republicans. I think they're going to come to the realization that, these tariffs have had a positive impact on things. They're not nearly as detrimental as we were told, haven't been catastrophic. I think that Trump says this is an election year. We need to share with the American people some of the successes, and I think that that's whatever you think about this, I think that's what's going to happen. I do. I think that Trump wins this in 2026. Deportations are going to continue. I would say deportations are going to potentially increase in intensity, increase in frequency. I think that they're continually looking for ways to do this. And there's reasons for this, which is the next point I want to hit here. Again, I'm getting to as much of this as I can. I've got 15 points here. I'm on number 10. Voter rolls and immigration enforcement is going to have an impact. It's going to show up in the 2026 midterms. Between states cleaning up their voter rolls and between illegal immigrants being deported or self-deported or being deported. What's the number? 2.2 million, maybe a little bit more than that, is what the number of total deportations of people who are not supposed to be here, who are illegally in this country. 2.2 million fewer people in 2026 than there were in 2025. That's a chunk, my friends. That's significant. Got a lot of work left to be done. But I think that you're going to begin to see this. I think Democrats know this. And I think that you combine this with there's a Supreme Court case called Louisiana versus Calais, which could stop the federal the requirement by in accordance with interpretation of the Voting Rights Act for certain districts to be drawn, congressional districts to be drawn with race being the primary factor of the people in the district. That may be overturned here by the Supreme Court, which could turn maybe up to 12 or so seats in the South that are blue seats and red states that could potentially turn those red. That's coming. You've got the voter rolls being cleaned. You've got illegal immigration, illegal aliens being deported. Don't think that this is not going to show up on the voting, on turnout, because I think it absolutely is. So that's out there as well. This is, by the way, the main reason why the left loves open borders, because it gives them the opportunity to import voters and to fundamentally change this country without having to persuade anybody to their insane ideas. I think that there's a slightly better than 50% chance that the Russian-Ukraine war ends. It's always hard with things like this. If you've ever read The Art of War by Sun Tzu, you know what I mean. But I think that there's a better than 50% chance, slightly better than 50% chance that Trump is able to negotiate an end to the Ukraine-Russian war. So that's good. I also think that there's a real risk that the Israel-Hamas ceasefire collapses for reasons that no human being is going to fix these problems long term. This runs deep. It runs for millennia. The religious component here, the hatred for the people of Israel, the brutality and the evil of Hamas. I hope it doesn't, but I think that there's a real risk to that collapsing in 2026. I already mentioned this briefly, but independent journalists are going to keep exposing what the legacy media won't. I think that this is in part in part a kind of, what I want to say, a just something that happens in the wake of people who have been inspired by Charlie Kirk. Even though he wasn't a journalist like that, I think there's a lot of inspiration to get the truth out. I expect more of this sort of thing to be happening. Unfortunately, I think that there's going to be more conservative infighting. More of the stuff that we've seen, fights about Erica Kirk, Candace Owens, all these, Ben Shapiro. I think there's going to continue to be that. I hope that we can move more towards unity than that, but don't be surprised if that continues happening. And I also think the 15th thing here, that there's going to be a lot of unresolved questions about Epstein. I think a lot of people think that there's just a file that tells us everything about Epstein and the victims, and I'm not really sure that such a thing exists or that we're ever going to see it if it does. Regardless, my friends, buckle up for 2026. Gotta go, SDG.